I wanted to do another gun video about a Glock Gen 4 slide on a Gen 5 frame, which is something I've been doing some research about on the internet, different forums and so forth, and there's not really a lot of information out there. There's a lot of speculation by people who've never tried it, but I just wanted to share what my experience has been with it. You can see I've got a couple of modifications done to this Gen 5 19 frame that I bought. I undercut the trigger guard, but also what I've started doing is kind of cutting in from the side at the rear of the trigger guard, since I kind of have a bad case of Glock knuckle, and it makes it a little bit more comfortable when you're gripping that. Now on the other side I put, kind of what some people call a gas pedal, or as Agency Arms calls it, an accelerator cut that you can kind of lock down on. Eventually I'll probably get around to getting some stippling done to this. I've got an Apex trigger, their flat trigger, and a Ghost 3.5 pound trigger connector in here. But I've seen some speculation on the internet, different forums, where they discuss using the Gen 4 frame or slide on these Gen 5 frames. And one of the things that I've seen some talk about is the new Gen 5 trigger housing, where you've got this additional piece here, which, according to what someone's comment was that I read, is needed for the structural integrity kind of the trigger housing, which I'm kind of not really sure about, because they had, if you did with the Gen 4s a NY-1 trigger connector, which is something I'm going to show you later here, you didn't have all of this, and there was no issue. But one person made a comment that with the Gen 4 style plunger here for the the striker plunger safety, that it would be riding up and down on this and could cause a little bit of extra wear, because the Gen 5 plunger is shaped differently, and so it wouldn't wear as much on this. It makes it easier for it to ride up and down, and I haven't seen any kind of wear on here. I don't really think that's too much of an issue. I don't see how how that's gonna, if it's cut at such an angle where it's going to be, functioning well with the trigger bar, then it shouldn't be an issue with this thing here. Not only that, but I think sometimes, I'm not sure how much that thing rides up and down. When you fire the gun and the striker comes forward, that the slide is ripped to the rear in recoil, and it seems to me that that firing pin isn't really going to be sliding back into its, into the rearward position anyways, to let that plunger come back down. Once the slide goes forward and this tab is hooked by the sear at the back of the cruciform on your trigger bar, that pulls that firing pin or striker back to the rear, and then this plunger can drop. So I really don't think this thing is riding up and down continuously as the slides slide cycles anyways. But I did see some questions on an internet forum where someone was asking about the NY-1 connector in these, and I just kind of wanted to demonstrate that you can do it. One thing you'll notice here, even though this would lock open on the empty mag, I cut off the tab on the right side of this slide lock or slide release, however you want to refer to it, the lever there. So it lets it come all the way up into the to the notch here whenever it locks back. If you have that other tab on here, it kind of hits the bottom of the slide and doesn't let it come up as far as it really should. But, since I've seen some speculation about this, but no real actual knowledge out there on some of these forums, I just wanted to show you what I did here. I went ahead and bought a Gen 4 trigger assembly, trigger housing, and the NY-1 trigger spring. And I just wanted to show you that that will work in the Gen 5 frame. Your trigger, the trigger spring in the Gen 5 functions in a very similar manner. You don't have the the little hook where it pulls the coil spring like you do on the earlier generations. And so really you have a similar operating procedure. You can see where I cut the tab off of the slide stop lever there. Let's go ahead and pop this trigger connector out. You can see it's the Ghost minus connector. It's the equivalent of the Glock minus connector. And what we'll do here is we'll put that connector on the Gen 4 housing. And got your little NY-1 spring. You can see how that drops down in. Haven't used one of these in years. But as you can see, have to use a little bit of force to hold it in there so it doesn't pop out while you're trying to get the trigger down in here. Hold that thing in there. It wants to, that NY-1 spring wants to pop that right out of there. It's definitely a very strong spring compared to what you're dealing with. The Gen 5 spring, even though it has a similar function in terms of how it operates, it really doesn't put any kind of upward pressure on that trigger bar when you're disassembling the pistol. It's really recessed down in there compared to what you get with one of these New York trigger springs. This is an interesting little tool that I bought, I guess on eBay somewhere. On this end here has a front sight tool, and then this is your disassembly tool on the other end. Kind of looks like a pen you can carry in your pocket or whatever. But you can see and actually with this, especially with this 3.5 pound connector in there, I tried it with the the original dot connector that came with it, and it still was pretty good. I've run the New York trigger springs before with like a Ghost Ranger 4.5 connector or the 3.5 pound connectors before, which is something that a lot of people do, and it does, and they do feel not too bad. This is actually a perfectly serviceable trigger, not really heavy at all. I've actually been pleasantly surprised by the Glock triggers anyways, but even with this New York 1 connector in there, it feels pretty good. I might take it out to the range and see how it shoots like that. This particular trigger connector gives a really solid reset anyways, but you can see that just a tiny bit with this, especially with this trigger in it. You know, not a huge amount of take up, and then so it's not too bad. But anyways, I've seen some questions out there about whether or not that works, and it does work. You can run the Gen 4 slides on here without any issues. The only video I've really seen was something Gabe Suarez did, where he was talking about their slides, which actually also have the cutout over here for the ambi safeties, or the ambi slide stop, which I actually thought about doing to this one, but it's not that big a deal to me. This is just like having a regular Glock, except that ambi slide stop assembly is much stronger than just that little tiny piece of metal they have for the normal slide stop levers in the earlier generations. So I really do like that. You've got a little hole here in your frame, a little gap where you can see where the ambi slide stop was supposed to be, but that's a cosmetic issue, not a functional issue. But for everybody out there that's wondering if that works, it definitely works. And like I say, this little cutout here I do on the side of the trigger, the bottom of the trigger, really, really does make my finger a little bit more comfortable when I'm shooting it. But there you go.